Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. So first, on behalf of the Latino Caucus for Public Health, my name is Paulina Sosa. I'm the president-elect for the caucus and also campaign manager for the Latinx Voces en Salud campaign. So it is with great privilege that on Census Day, we are with both Ana and Marianne from the U.S. Census Bureau that are honoring us with this great presentation talking about the census and its impact on Latino communities, vulnerable communities, and how that will take an impact on us in the next 10 years. So why is this important for us? So if you all have had a chance to think of any questions, we ask that you hold those questions for the last part of the webinar. I'm going to actually hand over the mic to Ana and to Mary Ann to do a quick introduction before we dive into their presentation to learn more about the powerful impact of the 2020 census. And thank you again for calling on and being with us today.
Thank you for having us. So I'm going to let Mary Ann introduce herself, because she is your main contact person from the census. So Mary Ann, you can go ahead and then I'll get started.
Great. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Marianne Carabeo, and I'm an account manager with the National Partnership Program at the U.S. Census Bureau, where we work together with organizations such as like yours to partner and use your platform as trusted voices of your community. You know,
okay,
how to better. I'm sorry?
I think that was so much.
Okay. Since you guys know better how to reach your community, we really learn most from what you guys can tell us, and we're just here to provide some information. So I'll just leave it over to Ana, who will be giving the presentation today.
Thank you. So my name is Ana Sandoval, and I am a research sociologist at the U.S. Census Bureau. I have worked there for about 4 years, and I'm currently serving as a research specialist inside of the Integrated Communications and Partnerships Program at the U.S. Census Bureau. What that means is I get to give this kind of presentations and do research about the effectiveness of some of our programs. So today we really want to talk about today's Census Day. So we want to talk about census, and we want to give you, there's some particular questions that different communities have. So we've prepared some based on the information we got from Paulina, but we are so excited and so happy to provide you with any information. If we don't have it, we will find it for you. Okay? So this is really a space for you, all of you, to answer and get all your questions answered. So.
And Ana, a really quick request. Would you mind having the microphone closer to your mouth just in case?
I'm gonna do something, but you're recording this and I'm gonna look really crazy, but that's okay.
You look perfect. Thank you so much.
I'm going to sacrifice my look here. Okay, so the goal of the census is to have a complete and accurate count of the population and of housing. So this is kind of what you're seeing on your screen is the cycle of how we do that. We first need to figure out where people are living, so where we need to count people. We want to engage people and tell them, hey, it's coming, and you need to respond. And right now, this very moment, we are in the self-response period of our campaign. And in the self-response campaign piece, we really are encouraging people to do the survey, the questionnaire via the online or in any way that is self-response. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you guys can encourage people to respond. But currently, I'm going to show you what our response rate is. So today's April 1st, Census Day, and this is our current response rate as of, I checked yesterday afternoon, it's at 36%. That means that 36% of the United States has responded, and I wanted to share with you something very neat. I wanted to share that we have this really interesting tool that allows us to, all of my lines. Okay, never mind. sorry, I am having some technology issues. So what this tool up here that I was showing you, okay, let's see. It allows us to look at different places and see how the response rate is. And you can see it by state, by census tract, by congressional district. So it's really neat to see how different places compare. And in the map that you see on your screen right now, you will see that the states that have the highest response rates are up north. So it's Wisconsin actually has the highest response rate, like last time I checked. So this is like a nice tool, like to look at your community and think about why is it looking the way it is compared to other places. So we were asked to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the face of this COVID-19 situation. So we were on their way. The operations had started before this got really serious. So what we're doing is we have three main objectives. We want to protect the health and safety of both census employees and the American public. So we want both ways. We don't want our staff to get sick, and we don't want our staff to get anybody else sick. So that's really the goal here. We're working closely to implement guidance from any federal, state, or local health authorities. So we're following all guidelines. And if we, like at least where I am in Washington, D.C., we have a stay-at-home order. So we're following all of those guidelines that are being provided. But we also have the goal of making sure that we have an accurate count of all of communities. So we have made major adjustments to, not major, but we have made adjustments to many of our operations. If the first one, and we have a table online. Let's see if this works. And it's not working. So we have this website, which we will share with you, and you'll get the slides, but we want to really showcase that. For instance, the self-response rate was originally supposed to end on July 31st. We have pushed that back for 2 weeks. Our update leave, which is when a census taker goes and drops off an invitation at the front door of about 5 million households. That was supposed to happen between March 15th and April 15th. Now it started much later, and we're making it longer. So I won't go through all of these, but on our website, you can see that we have made adjustments to all of our operations that are being impacted by COVID. And ultimately, our goal is to count everybody, and we're just going to adjust to those things. And we also we did not prepare for a pandemic, but we do have backup plans, and we have a team of very creative people that have come up with different ways in which we can mitigate some of the impact of this. So as the additional adjustments happen, if they happen, we are going to publish any of these updates on our website, the one I just showed you, and that when we send you this document, you will have a live link to it.
Oh my God.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about who is counted. I think all of us know this, but we want to count every person that lives in the United States on April 1st, no matter where they're from, how long they've lived in the US, why they're here, and whether or not they're documented. So we will count temporary workers, international students, people who are here working on assignment from overseas. All of those individuals will be counted. So there's a whole host of things that matter, and why the participation really matters. And this is just a small list of the kinds of data that comes that is impacted by that number. So we have census data. It impacts medical assistance program. It supports employment services.
Hi, I'm sorry. If you're a call-in user, can you please mute yourself? So if you're just on your computer, can you please mute yourself so we can hear Anna clearly?
So some of the other things that the numbers are used for as our state children's health insurance programs, the CHIP program, any kind of preventive health and health services, the school lunch program, Head Start, emergency relief projects. So we also, the numbers are used for maternal and child health and child welfare services, state grants. One of the other areas where this funding is used, this numbers are used is to make estimates and prepare for disasters. And one thing I was looking at today was we have all of these projections on how many people will be getting sick or who will be, where the impact will be, when the peak will be. All of those numbers are based on census estimates of population. So that is why this is so, so important. One of the other questions that we often get is where should people be counted? So we want to count people in their usual residence. That means the place where they live and sleep most of the time. We also want to make sure that we count everybody who stays and lives at an address, not just the person or the family who owns or rents the property. So for example, if you have two families sharing a 2-bedroom apartment, we don't just want to include one of the families. We want to include both families. And this is a little bit different than how like school lunch programs work, but we just want to make sure that we communicate that everybody in that address should go into that census form. So that includes non-relatives that are living with you, foster kids, kids that have no place to live that you've taken on, even if they're only living at this address temporarily or on April 1st. So let's say my niece comes to stay with me for a few months and she's here today, but she's not. But for example, then I would count her as living here because this is where she is spending her time and she's a minor. And so she is counted at my home. So people that are in certain types of group facilities are counted at that group facility. And people who do not have a usual residence or we cannot determine a usual residence, they're counted wherever they are on census day. So that's some of the things that we do, but we do want to make sure that everybody is counted. Now, as I was mentioning, young kids are an interesting situation. So some of you may have heard this, that one of the groups that is highly undercounted is young children under the age of 5. So we want to remind everybody, and we would love for you guys to share this with your communities, is that all kids in your custody, anybody that lives there, should be counted. Now, for kids that split their time between two homes, for example, they are in a joint custody, in a true 50-50 joint custody, they should be counted in the home they're living if they're living with you on April 1st. So if your child is with you April 1st, you should count the child there. If the child is with the other parent, the child should be counted in that other household. Newborn babies also, those who are born even today, all those babies, even if they're still at the hospital, you should count those babies when you fill out your form or when individuals fill out your form. So one of the areas that I'm very interested in is the hard to count populations. So the way that the Census Bureau defines this is those people who we have a real or perceived barrier to full and representative inclusion in our data collection process. And so we have 4 different kinds of hard to count populations. There's people that are hard to locate. So we have a hard time identifying where they are. People who move with, I went to school in California and there was a large population of people that moved with the crops. Now that is difficult to find. Those are people really difficult to locate. So once we find people, there's also the issue of they may become hard to contact. So it may be that it's difficult to access them, or it may be that they don't have a physical address, so we have a hard time. And I really like to think about this as a hard to contact community can also be a very wealthy community, people that live in gated communities, because you can't just walk in and start knocking on doors. There is a very limited, there's limited access. So we also have people who are hard to persuade. So we know that once we find them, once we access them, then they may be very reluctant to participate. It may be because if people feel they're too busy, they don't have time, they have fears. And so those are a different kind of problem than someone who's hard to locate. And those annotation request, sorry. But yeah, okay. So and those people who are hard to interview. So once we may know where people are, we may know how to contact them. But then once we know that they're there, it may be difficult because we have some kind of barrier. So it may be that we don't speak the language. It may be that people have low literacy. So we can send them 30 pieces of mail, but if they can't read it, they can't read it. Like, that's a real problem. Or some form of disability that makes it difficult for them to communicate with us, or for us to communicate with them. So those are just the very general ideas. But the goal of this, and sorry, I have a second laptop with all my notes here, so I apologize if this looks very strange, but I want to make sure I tell you all the information I want to share. One second. So when national censuses happen and we miss members of the hard to count population, it can lead to skewed demographics and demographic estimates, things like underrepresentation in government, and then communities may lose out on allocation of public and private resources. So that is why it's so important to count everyone. Okay, whoops, this annotation, I don't know. I am again having technology issues today. Cannot move my slides. Oh, here we go. So this is the information that that the form asks you to provide. Number of people that live at your address. We ask if there's any additional people that are living or staying. Someone that's staying on your couch for a couple of months, that person counts in your home. If you're an owner or a renter, we ask for your phone number. And I really want to reiterate that the phone number is rarely used. But once in a while, we do have to call people back because we are having a hard time either figure out what any of the information that's there, and we want to make sure it's accurate. That's why we ask for your phone number. We ask for your name, for your sex, age and date of birth. And we ask them, is this person Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish? Then the race question, and whether a person lives or stays somewhere else. So this applies for anybody that's part-time living in your home and part-time living somewhere else, and the relationship between the person that's filling out the census and the other individuals in the household. Note. So sometimes we get asked why we ask the question of owner or renter. And one of the things is that we asked about the home ownership or rental status because it allows us to create statistics about home ownership. And home ownership rates serve as an indicator of the nation's economy and helps in administering things like housing programs or informing planning services. So that's why that question is asked. And I can provide more details on why we ask different questions here, but I always find that super interesting. So this is the things we will not ever ask you. We will never ask about your social security number. Never ask anybody about money or donations. And we will not ask anything about on behalf of a political party. We will not ask you bank or credit card account information. And we will not ask citizenship status. Just yesterday, I wanted to mention this here. We heard that there is some rumors going around that in order for people to get the stimulus money that is coming from the package that was recently passed, that they have to fill out the census. That is absolutely not true. Filling out the census will not have an impact on the ability of communities, of families, of individuals to get that stimulus money. So I wanted to share that. That's like hot off the presses. We just put out some information on that. So one of the other pieces is that I want to talk about is the citizenship concerns. I want to reiterate that no, the census does not ask whether you or anyone in your home is a U.S. citizen. And yes, we do count non-citizens in the U.S. Census. We want to count everybody, no matter, where they're from. We include non-citizens, but we do count everybody living in the country. We cannot share your information with law enforcement or use it against you. The law prevents the Census Bureau from sharing any information with law enforcement. Your answers cannot impact your eligibility for government benefits, like things like WIC or CHIP or school lunch programs. It will not have an impact on you individually. The information that's provided can help governments and cities build strong programs, but we will not share whose household has 6 kids and has 1 child or any of that information. And census employees are bound by a law called Title 13 that protects your personal information and makes it confidential. One of the interesting things is that even after an employee of the census leaves census, they're still bound by that law. So we cannot share any information, even if we stop working for the census. So that means that once we get information, people are protected for life. So I want to talk a little bit about how to respond. We have 3 main forms that we're doing, 3 ways that we're doing. We are doing internet, paper, and telephone, and you can do any of those. Now, everyone should have received at this point an invitation to participate. So it's a piece of paper, and we have some samples on our website, but it's an envelope with a piece of paper. You can open it, and it has a 12-digit code in it. You can respond anytime from anywhere. I did mine like on a Sunday at 10 in the morning, and it took me maybe 5 minutes. I don't have a very complex household, but it's a very quick form to fill, and I did mine online. But you can do it online if you are not comfortable with, or people that you know, or people that you're serving. That you're serving tell you, oh, I don't want to do it online because I don't use the internet, or they feel ambivalent about it, or they don't have internet. Then they can. The invitation has a phone number, and they can call that phone number and create the responses. In that way, I provide the responses, and I'm going to show you all the languages that we're supporting on the phone, but in Spanish, that is absolutely available. And they can just call and ask for someone to speak with someone in Spanish, and they can answer their census. Or at some point, once I actually do not recall the date today because everything's changing. Once we have not received, if we have not received the response either online or over the phone or by mail by a certain date, you will receive a paper form. But the fastest and easiest way really is online. It is super easy, super fast. Just to share, my dad, who is 70, and my stepmom, they did theirs. They sat down, followed the directions, and their input was, this was so easy, we're telling all of our friends. So it was pretty easy to do. Let's see. So if we do not get the data from individuals, what will happen is that we go into this operation called the non-response follow-up. This is when we have people go out to people's door. So one thing we want to say is, if you want to avoid someone coming to your door, just go ahead and fill the form out. Or when you get that internet that invitation, call the number, go online. No one should be coming to your door. We do have a lot of automation that goes on to manage how our staff goes out there and how that is all happening. They're using handheld devices, so there's no paper like flying around. And And we have different operations like recruiting staff and training, and all of that is now automated. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing, and that really helps the process. So you may see, or someone, the people that you serve may see census takers going in around the neighborhoods. And so around mid-August, this may be a little later now, and if someone comes to your home and they want to collect information, we do ask if you have questions or concerns, they should have a valid ID badge with their picture. And the ID has a commerce watermark. And they also are carrying bags with a logo and equipment with the census logo. And many of our advertisings will show that. But the ID is really key. And you should feel free to ask for it and tell anyone that you're working with, just look at the ID. Okay, so here's the languages that we support on our in all areas. So we have English, Spanish, Chinese, we have Mandarin and Cantonese, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, Polish, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Japanese. So these are the languages in which we have materials, and I'm going to share with you the website where you can look at some of the materials. It's pretty neat. Our campaign and our education and campaign, all of our marketing campaign is in these languages also. So you can see many of these out there. So the internet self-response and the census questionnaire assistance, so how you can fill it out on your own online, or if you call, is available in 12 non-English languages. And yeah, so people can call, and Spanish is readily available. Then we have language guides in 50 other non-English languages. And we have language glossaries, we have language identification cards. The questionnaire itself, when it's mailed, it's only available in English and Spanish. And all of our communications are in at least 12 non-English languages plus English. So this is the team I work on now with the integrated partnership and communications team. And our goal is to really engage and motivate people to self-respond, preferably via the internet. We really want to raise awareness and keep this awareness high during the entire process. And we do all sorts of stuff. We do research, we do work in statistics in schools, we work with a website, and we engage with our stakeholders. So we do a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff that we want to do is we want to educate people. As I said, we want to encourage people to our community partners to engage with us. And we want to engage organizations to help us reach out to hard to count groups. One of the best ways for us to reach our communities that are harder to count is if we have people that these communities trust that can help us bring that message to them. So that is our community partnership program. Our other big program is a national partnership program, and you guys are a national partner. So we want to get your help and your support in increasing public trust, awareness, support for the census, and do activities like what we're doing today. We do lots of these because it is very important, because you can reach very large communities in a way that we could do, but wouldn't do as effectively as you can. So this is some of our promotional outreach materials. We have many of them. This is just a small sample of them. And we have one that shows how to count everyone in the household. Another one that explains confidentiality. And then we have this other one that is, let's see the title of this, but how you can fill out the census, and this is available in Spanish. so these are some of our materials. As a partner, you should be able to access those. They're all on our website also. So lots and lots of materials. So we have a large Hispanic integrated communication campaign. If you watch TV at all today on any of the Spanish TV channels, you will have seen this. And I say that because I saw, I was watching Univision waiting for my boss to get on and be interviewed, and then I saw it. So I wanted to share with you in case you have not had the chance to see this video. Oops. Sorry about that. I'm having. And it's a great, there's a bunch of these ads, but the I am so sorry this is working so poorly. My oh, I know what is happening. My mouse is left-handed. That's why I have problems. Sorry. I'm going to fix it right now. Oh, no, that's not working. Okay, I'm so sorry. We will get to this at the end of this presentation when I figure out how to do it. My apologies for that. See.
Anna, if you would like, we can share the link in the chat. And
yeah.
So we don't necessarily need to watch it right now, but it'll give people a chance to open that up and finish.
Yes, and we'll send you links to what where these are. I just wanted you to get a feel for it. They're really great advertising, and I do apologize. I know I was working on my work laptop, and I had opened everything there, and then I had to switch to my personal laptop for it to work. So my apologies for that. Then we also have this pretty neat information in Spanish for helping people figure out where they should be count and where they should count in the correct place. And so we have generated a bunch of these, again, all available online. Our website is also available in Spanish and English. And this is what the landing page looks today. So it just says shape your future, start here, and it gives you the link to respond. So if you land here, you click on respond and it takes you to where you need to be. I would say that the majority of our materials are available in Spanish. Some of the stuff we have available. Oh, and then this is how you can find us many ways. So you can sign up for email updates and alerts, and we have this website. We have a whole set of memorandum series, which are research-based, so that can also, you can look into those. Just general information about the census, the American Community Survey, which is also great. And you can link with us anywhere: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest. I admit I've not looked at the Pinterest stuff, but the Instagram stuff, I follow it, and it's pretty great. So I think that's all we have. But I'd love to then open it for questions and answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. That was an amazing presentation. So we're all giving you a virtual round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I feel like I really gained a lot from that as well. And just to echo what Anna said, for those that haven't filled out the census, it is very easy. It was much easier than I expected. So thank you again for just kind of elucidating some of those questions that a lot of our members have had. So there have been a few questions that have come in. So I'm going to go ahead and just, there have been some questions that have overlapped as well. So I'll go ahead and share those. But if anyone has any questions that have come up or that you feel haven't been answered, feel free to put that in the chat and we'll go ahead and get those answered for you. So one of the questions that came up a lot, Anna, was so how can we, and I think we could mean like us individually or us as an organization, how can we ensure that that those that are undocumented feel safe? So there, even though you very clearly said that we don't ask the citizenship status question, what are some pieces of advice you would give to those of us that work very closely with the undocumented community to make sure that we do what we can to assure them that they are safe?
I think to me, there's two pieces of this. One is saying, look, I did this and there's no danger. So by example, by telling people how you went and you got the form, you did it, it's easy, and there's no thing to be concerned about. And this is where I think the communicating as people who communities trust is very, very powerful. So putting out the message out there, and we partner with community, like religious communities, we partner with other types of communities, all sorts of people, because we know that those are the places where individuals will come for comfort and information. And so I think that you have a lot of power in being able to say, we believe this is important for us to invest in 10 minutes or 15 minutes of your time invested in this has a huge impact for the next 10 years. So I think that's some of the pieces. We also have a bunch of materials on our website in Spanish that you can provide, and you can show people what the impact of the census is long term. Things like schools, childcare, and school lunch programs. All of those are impacted by each person participating in this census.
Definitely, that's great advice. Thank you, Anna, for that. So I hope that provides those that were asking that question some guidance, and even those of us that are thinking of approaching our community some guidance as well. So there is also a few questions on how would you guide, I would say the majority of us on the call probably have this question, so there is the race question, but then there is the Hispanic or Latino question directly after. So how would you guide us to answer the race question? What's the best way to answer that?
It's a really hard question to answer. What I can tell you is that if race in the United States is a self-identifier, so you are the one who is determining what you identify as. And as such, you should say, identify, like myself, I identify as Latina, so I say yes to Hispanic Latino. And on the next question, that is very much how you would like to respond to it. I cannot provide you with, say what you should do, but it is a self-identifier. It is one of the questions that you can leave empty or you can write in other. So that's one of the good things about it, is that one of the options is other, and it has a write-in for those who feel that they do not fit into the categories that are listed in the current form. So make use of those options if you are not finding that what you feel is your reflects who you are.
That's great. Thank you, Anna. So I'm just going to kind of go down the list here. We have a few more questions. We have some time. So one of the questions was whether or not hazard pay is given to enumerates.
So the enumerators, at the moment, I do not have that information. What I do know is that we have pushed back that operation. So enumerators are not going out until at this point, we have pushed it back at least 2 weeks, 4 weeks, to April 15th. And as I said at the beginning, we are going to follow whatever guidance we're given by CDC and by local and state officials. So we are following, and if they tell us you should not go out there and you should, shelter in place or stay at home order, that's what we're going to do. So at this point, we're not. I don't think there is hazard pay. We can, find out. But I do know that we're doing everything to not put people at risk.
That's great. That's important. And I'm actually curious if anyone on the call is, has signed up to be an enumerator. So if you are, it'd be interesting to have you type that in the chat as well. So another question that we received was just as far as timing for the census. I know that there's been information sent out, especially now that enumerators are, that's being pushed back and everything's kind of being pushed back. Is there an official last day to send in the census?
So you will be able to continue to fill in the online form even after we are sending enumerators out. If, let's say, for example, the enumerator shows up to your home and you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with you, but you still have your letter, or you can actually do one without the 12-digit ID. That's the enumerator will say, look, you can do it, and off you go and you can do it. So that will remain open for a while. And the drop dead deadline, I really do not have that information. It's very much in flux. And at this point, I would say that it is better to do it sooner than do it later, in part because it is cheaper also for the government, which is for all of us because we're taxpayer based, to encourage people to do it sooner, to not wait until that enumerator shows up. Because even though that is a small portion of the operation to count people, it is the most expensive one. So, for all of our, I like to see it as we're saving money. We all together in this are going to save some money if we encourage communities to do it online.
Thank you. So we had two questions about basically language or ability. So I'm gonna kind of group it into one. So I feel that one of your slides talked already about the languages, but so I guess part A of this question is there perhaps in the future, I guess in the next 10 years, is there going to be a census that basically focuses on, non-traditional languages? So right now we have Spanish, but is there going to be indigenous languages included as well? And if so, if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So we have the way that languages are organized. So these are not just made out of, of course I want everything to be in Spanish, but these are not just made without any data. So how we do it is we look at the communities that have the largest number of speakers of another language, and those same people or that same community has low English literacy or low English. So these are the communities we ask this, the American Community Survey asks, how well does this person speak English? So what we want to do is although for instance, we may have communities that have large numbers of people that speak another language, they may be also communities with high numbers of English speakers. So those individuals, we are concerned because we want to reach them, but they are not a community that we're concerned about them understanding materials. We're concerned about the people that do not speak English well. So that's the communities that we are that are on our list. So the ones that you see are those that have the highest numbers of individuals that don't speak English well. Mm. That's how it is picked, and that allows us to cover about, I think it's 90%, but I can get back to you with that number, about 90% of non-English speaking households. Because our goal is to be able to reach the largest number of people. And that's how that decision is made. So, but this is why our partners are so important and so significant, because some of our partners are producing and are creating information in the other languages that we just don't have the budget to do or don't have the resources to work with. So there are communities that are producing, like, I don't know if the Navajo Nation is doing this, but other Native nations are doing this and just producing their materials and things that they can use in their communities. And we encourage that to happen because we just do not have the staff or the expertise to communicate in those languages.
Mm. And there's a follow-up question, actually. So from Irene Martinez, she's one of our board members as well with the Latino Caucus. So her question is, but what happens if a language minority needs a translator or has low literacy on either of the featured languages? What are they able to do? Where are they able to go at that point?
So our enumerators, so we know where communities that have a low literacy in a particular language are. So we hire both enumerators and partnership specialists that speak those languages or that can access the resources for translation. And thus, then when they go out, they are able to communicate with those individuals. So let's say that an enumerator that is primarily English speaking ends up, and I'm going to put MAM because it's one of the big languages in Guatemala. So they show up to a household, and this household is primarily MAM speaking. The enumerator is like, I don't know what's happening here. They have the resources to go back to their office and say, I believe this family or this group speaks an indigenous language. Let's figure it out. And then they'll send someone else who has that language ability, or will work with partnership specialists to provide the support for those people to be enumerated.
Great, thank you. And I guess that's partially where these partnerships come in. You know, like you said, you're very big on local and even national partnerships. So, you know, hopefully this is also a gap that maybe the Latino Caucus can help fill. You know, if we know of communities or areas that that need these services, we can kind of help bridge that gap. So this is a great example of that. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. Another question that's kind of a part B is so basically talking about the disabled population. So I know that there was a slide that kind of addressed this, but if you could just kind of expand a little bit on how you address how the U.S. Census Bureau addresses issues for disabled respondents, so blind or hard of hearing. You know, is there already information on, you know, kind of telling them where to go and how to fill in the census?
Yes. So if respondents who are hard of hearing or who have any kind of sight issues, there's a couple of ways to do it. They can call and they'll get a form for instance, in Braille, we have those available. And then our phone has a TTY on it, so that they're able to communicate in that way. And this is, I was actually at an event in LA recently where the partner was working with a community organization that primarily serves kids with developmental disabilities. So they were working in explaining how to do it, in really engaging, you know, because we are not experts at everything. And this is, again, where the partnerships really help us in understanding how this should be communicated. And so this particular partnership specialist, her big thing was working with the disabled community. So she's a trusted voice for that community. And so she's able to communicate in a way that none of us could. You know, for families that have kids with severe disabilities, she was able to explain to them in a way that, again, I would never be able to, because that's what they're good at. They know these things that, again, we're not experts at everything.
That's a powerful example of that. Thank you for sharing that. And so I think so we have two more questions, and then we can open up for maybe one or two questions from anyone that are calling in from the phone. So one of the questions is if we rent from an owner's house, is that person supposed to fill out a form on their own, or is the person who owns the house supposed to fill out the form So is there this delineation or even a risk of duplication if both people fill out the form counting each other?
So if you are renting, for instance, I live in DC where there's a lot of basement apartments, like or first floor apartments in the row houses, just because there's no, that's just how it is. And in other cities, you'll see this. So if that unit in the basement that you're renting from a landlord, the people that live upstairs from you, if that has its own address, so I see this a lot here, like 1516B, because you're the bottom, the B basement, and then you will get a form on the mail, and you should fill it out because that is a legal unit. Now, if in a situation where you're renting a room from a landlord, that the person owns the property, you should be included in that form, in their form, because it is the same household.
Mm.
Of course, there are going to be situations in which people are concerned that they were not counted. Then they should fill out a form, because we also have a backend system to check for duplications.
Oh.
So if let's say this happens with kids that have joint custody, both parents put in the child, we have a system to check for duplicates and to make sure that we're not duplicating. And so, of course, it makes it easier if we don't have duplicates. But if that person is very concerned and they're like, I don't think I'm going to get counted, they should fill it out. And if there's a duplication, we will take care of it in the back end.
That's great. I think DC is a great example. In the chat box, San Francisco is another example. New York. So I think this
So
is
all this like legally but not quite legal units. I mean, many of us probably have lived in one at some point in our lives. But yeah, so there's all those situations where, above a garage in some areas.
right.
It's a tough one. We do have someone who goes out. So last summer, yeah, I think it was last summer, we had a whole group of people go out and check addresses. And so they go around and they walk around the neighborhood and they talk to some of the units, and we are double checking about the unit. So that's the first step. We're double checking in places that there's new development or that there's a question about units. And, if it's 2 units, if it's 1 unit, and then they get mailed out. So we first check our mailing list, then stuff gets sent out. Mistakes happen. So I will encourage people to fill it out if they're unsure about the situation.
Great. That's helpful. And just being cognizant of time, we're at 4 minutes till the end of the webinar. So I think this is a good last fitting question for closing out the Q&A portion. So do we get confirmation if anyone receives, or I'm sorry, if anyone mails in a census form? Is there a confirmation that it's been received?
I do not believe there is a confirmation, but you should then stop receiving mail from us. So, once you send it in, you may get something else, another reminder, saying fill out your form. If you've done it, ignore it. If you have not, then fill it. Oftentimes you will get 2 mailers because they're sent. It is so massive that they're sent before they can check you off the list. When you do it online, though, you do get a screen that says, thank you for submitting your census. And then you're done. So you do get a screen that says that there's a submission completed.
That's great. Thank you, Anna. And so I would say that about closes our Q&A session. So if there are any kind of last questions, please feel free to email us, or please feel free to send it to, as you can see, we have the Latino Caucus social media page up. So you can reach us at any of these profiles. You can also reach us at the email that you either registered at for Eventbrite, or where you received the newsletter for this webinar. And we'd love to hear your questions. And Anna and Marianne, if y'all are available to answer those questions after the webinar, that would be but that'd be helpful as well if that's okay with you all.
Definitely. I'm more than happy. We will find information if we don't know it, and we will confirm anything that you have questions. And we we appreciate your time, your care for this topic, and we're here to help. So please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you. And again, we give you a virtual applause. Today is Census Day, but we are also very cognizant that we are all in the middle of a very difficult time with the coronavirus, and so with that, again, we thank you both for taking the time and just being with us and really just kind of shedding light on some of these big questions. Because the fact of the matter is, just as a note to everyone on the call, the census is happening, and this is really an opportunity for Latinos to get counted, for all of us to get counted. And Anna, and we'd love to hear more, perhaps in some of the materials you'll be sharing after the call, on how the data that you receive from the census really does impact Latino populations after all the census data has been taken and analyzed. So this is such an important time for us, and I just want to emphasize that. So a big thank you again to both of you for joining us, from the Latino Caucus to you. Really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate the time for everyone that's on the call with us. We look forward to connecting with you after this, and again, we just want to wish everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and keep an eye out for other things we'll be trying to do to support you as we move forward in the midst of this crisis.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.